Willkommen zurück bei Lamplight City. Ja, wir unterhalten uns gerade hier mit den Harrison in ihrem Haus. So wirklich viel haben wir noch nicht rausgefunden. Gut, es ist auch gerade erst gestartet, der Fall, insofern alles gut. Wir sprechen mal mit ihm, gucken mal, was er noch so zu erzählen hat.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Der sieht ein bisschen aus wie der Andrew, ne? Vom ersten Fall. Aber wahrscheinlich nur so ein bisschen. Gut, über ihn selbst fragen wir mal nicht, weil da haben wir letztes Mal von der Frau schon eine Abfuhr gekriegt. Ja, wir fragen mal zur Entführung.
Tell me everything you can about the kidnapping.
I don't know much. I was out last night while it happened.
Where had you been previously?
I was out with friends. My wife can verify the time I arrived home.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
Das auf jeden Fall.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
Looks like it came from a piece of clothing. Possibly a jacket.
Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
Maybe? I can't really say. You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Fordham. I've got quite a lot on my mind right now. If I can think of anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Okay.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is a good boy. Very quiet. Miriam had wanted a child almost from the moment we married. You know how women are when they have their hearts set on something. I saw no need to rush, but
Nice to know you're not the only one. Hey, Miles.
the first 2 times Miriam was with child, she suffered some unfortunate accidents. She was devastated, as you can imagine. So when Charles finally came along, he turned out to be quite a blessing. I can't imagine what sort of depraved madman would take him from us like this. You must find him, Mr. Fordham.
I intend to, Mr. Harris.
Okay.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, not at all. Do you think the kidnapper might have left it behind?
It's a distinct possibility.
Ach komm, wir wollen doch.
Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell, really. My life has been fairly well publicized in the newspapers.
Let's pretend for a moment that I skip over the society pages.
Well, I'm an investor. My father Clyde runs Harris Construction Company, which I will someday inherit. Any other details about me are fairly trivial nonsense, I think.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right.
Okay. Also die sind beide zu sich selber, beziehungsweise zu den jeweiligen anderen irgendwie nicht so ganz ehrlich, scheint es. Aber gut,
It
gucken
looks like a
mal.
pile of women's clothes. Must belong to Mrs. Harris.
Nein, Quatsch.
Who in their right mind would need that many drawers? Fancy. Some poor servant's probably gonna get a flogging for leaving it in here, though.
Okay. Erstmal durchsuchen.
Let's see what we have here. A very poorly written letter addressed to Mr. Harris.
I don't suppose it's a letter of admiration.
On the contrary, the author seems quite upset.
Sorry, Jan, hier ist deine wöchentliche Erinnerung zu wissen, wie arg ich dich hasse. Wegen dich ist meine Frau tot. Meine Frau war wundervoll, Frau, und du hast sie mir genommen. Ich hoffe, dich geht es genauso schlimm wie mich, Arthur Denvis. Okay. Na, unabhängig davon, dass er ganz viele Rechtschreibfehler und so weiter hatte, sollten wir uns mit diesem Davis unterhalten.
Nothing else of note.
Oh well, at least we got to play a rousing game of Search the Rich People's Dresser.
Ja.
Wardrobes are usually always full of wonderfully dark secrets.
Aufmachen.
An empty suitcase. I suppose Mr. Harris must travel every now and then.
Scheinbar.
One thing is for certain. Mr. Harris uses entirely too much starch on his shirts. An empty suitcase.
Also,
One thing is for
hm.
Yeah, it seems like this is where Mrs. Harris keeps her unmentionables.
Ooh.
I like the ones with the frills and the stitched cat. Paperwork and receipts. Nothing particularly interesting here. More lacy underthings. I wonder which Harris they belong to. Mr. Harris's color selection is almost as drab as yours.
Let's see if there's anything of interest in any of the pockets.
So, Mr. Harris is a fan of the ponies, is he? I'm sure that's not causing him any trouble at all.
Okay, der wettet also dann. Das ist ja erstmal nix.
Mr. Harris's color...
Ist ja erstmal nichts Verwerfliches dran.
Painting of the city. Probably the only time the Harris family sees any of the other boroughs. Oh, another four-poster. The Harris family certainly makes no secret of their wealth.
Okay. Gut, wir sprechen jetzt nochmal mit dem. Und sprechen ihn mal auf den Brief an.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Harris, what can you tell me about these?
What? How did you...
Listen, I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't do it if I don't get the entire truth.
Eben.
We could discuss this somewhere more private.
I suppose we could.
Good. Let's move to the nursery then.
Okay, hier geht auf jeden Fall was los, ey.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes, of course.
So, also.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going, but I've had such a good streak lately. The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Okay, also er zockt und sie weiß es nicht und deswegen sagt er ihr, er wäre bei seinen Freunden gewesen, war aber eigentlich auf der Rennbahn. Das ist ja geil.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious. If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Who was the owner?
Mr. LaFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place, but I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LaFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
Okay, den auf jeden Fall mal besuchen.
I found this letter in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
You went through our things?
Ja,
I'm a
klar.
private investigator, Mr. Harris. It's part of my job.
Of all the insolence!
You're upset, I know, but do you want me to find your son or don't you?
Yes, of course I do. That letter was sent to me by mistake. It was written to my father. Well, if you can even call that writing.
Have I ever mentioned how much I hate rich people? Because I really hate rich people.
Your father. Doesn't he own the company building the new airship?
Yes, that's right. He's been receiving many letters just like that one since the Ligeia disaster. But that Devons fellow in particular has sent one every week, along with a bag of chicken bones and dust.
How peculiar.
Not only that, he leads a daily protest in front of the construction yard where the HMS Lenore is being built, trying to halt production. My God! How did I not see this before?
See what?
Devons! He has a grudge against this family because of what happened with the Ligeia. I'd put money on him being involved with the kidnapping somehow, as a form of retaliation.
Mr. Harris clearly hasn't learned his lesson about betting, it seems.
I'll just have to speak with Mr. Devons and see for myself.
Okay.
How goes the construction of the new airship?
There have been some complications, but nothing we can't handle.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, I already told you about the trouble with protesters at the yard. And we're blocked pending Royal Maverick's review of the safety regulations for the prototype etheric diffusion engines. Agitators and red tape aside, we should still be on schedule to have the Lenore finished and in the air by the end of the year. But really, Mr. Fordham, what the deuce does this have to do with finding Charles?
He has a point, you know.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
Ja, wenn sonst nichts ist. So, alles klar. Wir gehen mal zur Corday. Quartier Mrs. Davis. Es ist Baugelände. Das Kreditbüro. Okay, wir gehen einfach mal von Norden nach Süden. Wir gehen mal zu Mrs. Davis.
Come in.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last.
Was?
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt. And after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Okay.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh dear, may the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind.
Alter, was ist das denn für eine?
Specifically would you like to know?
Eieieiei.
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris. To think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Apologies, I spoke out of turn.
Okay, Hinweis gefunden.
Can you think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off. I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
Ah, come on, anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Ja, wenn man Wettschulden hat, das sind meist nicht die nettesten Leute.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
It might have been for money, but last I heard, there was no demand for a ransom. I honestly don't know why this happened, Mr. Fordham. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Barney.
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Barney as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember. No, wait. It was at the last
Geisterkundler
meeting
ist,
on the
Alter.
19th. That's right.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Though I
Absolut.
don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
You can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find Charlie?
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into.
Okay.
Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. She prefers to meet people elsewhere. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently. But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay. Diese Fotografien. Sonst ist hier, glaube ich, wenig. Club der Geisterkundler. Alles klar. Ja, da würde ich sagen, gehen wir erstmal zum Baugelände.
Well, someone certainly wasn't shy about making their opinion known.
And so we say to Harris and his cronies, no, we will not stand for this. Too many have died to allow this to continue. Steam tech must be stopped.
Ja,
People have jobs they need to go to.
Pardon me, are you Arthur Devons by any chance?
Yes? Who are you?
Miles Fordham, private investigator. Could I ask you a few questions?
Guess so, yeah.
Okay.
You seem very dedicated to your cause.
I'll take that as a compliment, Mr. Fordham.
There's quite a lot of people who are against steam tech, aren't there?
Yes, the movement is gaining ground and growing rapidly, I'm pleased to say.
I've heard stories about some more extreme members. Do you know anything about that?
You mean the Redites? Sure, I've heard of them. Even met a few. But if you think I'm telling you anything else beyond that, you're sorely mistaken.
Are you a member of the Redites, Mr. Devons?
No, I prefer more peaceful methods of making my voice heard. Now, if you don't mind, I think we should drop the subject.
Okay.
Do you recognize this letter, Mr. Devons?
How'd you get that? That wasn't meant for you.
I found it at the home of Mr. Malcolm Harris. He tells me you've been sending quite a few of these to his father.
Me and everyone else what had someone killed by that devil machine. I'm not the only one, you know.
Perhaps not, but he told me you were the most persistent.
Zum Glück ist das im Hintergrund überhaupt nicht laut. Finde ich super.
What have you got against the Harris family?
Family? Don't know nothing about the family. The only one I got a problem with is Clyde Harris, the one who owns this yard. He's just like all those other rich bastards with their heads in the clouds. The man don't care about the dead. He just wants to make as much money as he can. I'm just trying to make him realize how wrong he is.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
Charles Harris? Who's that?
Clyde Harris's grandson.
I didn't even know he had a grandson. I can't believe someone with a grandkid, a family, would want more flying death in the air. How many more people have to die before someone realizes that steam machines are evil? People will kill their own mams for a crown these days.
Okay.
Mr. Harris told me you send a bag of chicken bones and dust along with your letters. Why is that?
Chicken bones? Dust? Nah, that's not right. I've only sent letters.
Are you certain of that?
Yes, as sure as I'm standing here.
Right. And I'm the queen. I get the feeling this guy will crack if we figure out what the significance of his little gift is.
Ja, wahrscheinlich die Knochen und den Staub von den Hinterbliebenen oder von den Toten oder irgendwie sowas.
Why are
Ne?
you out here protesting?
Because what Harris Construction is doing ain't right. I lost my wife in the Lygia crash, and I'm not the only one, neither. Hundreds of people were affected by that disaster, and now these bastards are making another airship. It's like a slap in the face to everyone who died. I just can't understand it.
What do you hope to accomplish by protesting?
Simple. We want construction of the Lenore stopped, and a full investigation into the Lygia disaster. Not only that, we want compensation for our losses. Royal Maverick took care of all the families of those on board, but the families of the ones in the park didn't get a single copper. It just isn't fair. We aim to make things right. After that, it'll just be a matter of time before people realize that there's no future in steam tech, and they'll call the whole thing off.
Ah, the innocence of the downtrodden. I wish I could be as naive as them. It would have made my life a lot easier.
You must have loved your wife very much.
Are you joking? I loved her more than there are stars in the sky. She was my whole world, Mr. Fordham, the light of my life. It's been nothing but cold and dark since she was killed. You're married, aren't you, Mr. Fordham? I see a ring on your finger.
I am, yes.
Then take my advice. Appreciate every moment you have with her. You never know when she'll be ripped out of your life, leaving you with nothing.
You know, this fellow was actually pretty wise. Maybe we misjudged him.
Does this piece of fabric look familiar to you?
Looks like it came from some fancy jacket, the type you'd expect to see on the snobs in Leon. I could never afford clothes like that in a million years.
Do you recognize this button?
Can't say I do, but it looks handmade. I wonder how long it will be before the poor soul who crafted that button gets booted into the street and replaced with some steam-belching contraption.
Good day to you, Mr. Devons.
You too, Mr. Fordham.
Okay.
The time has come to reject steam machines.
Erstmal zur Karte wieder zurück. Oh, meine Fresse. Das war ja laut, ey. Ja, wir müssen also die Bedeutung von den Staub und den Knochen rausfinden, um ihn dann hoffentlich zum Reden zu bekommen. Ja, das machen wir dann in der nächsten Folge von Lamplight City, beziehungsweise gucken uns halt auch weiter um. Hier bei dem Pfandleiher natürlich. Und auch dann hier bei den Geisterkundlern. Ja, ich bedanke mich auf jeden Fall recht herzlich fürs Zuschauen. Wir sehen uns dann in der nächsten Folge von Lamplight City wieder. Bis dahin, auf Wiedersehen.